More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back into the Zach Gelb Show, emanating from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. 609-919-9200 is the telephone number if you want to hop on board with us. The UFC is coming to Long Island this weekend on Saturday on Fox, and one of the fights on the main card at Nassau Coliseum is going to be Jimmie Rivera versus Thomas Almeida, and Jimmie Rivera is kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Jimmy, appreciate a few minutes. Zach Gelb here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. So this is a pretty neat event coming up this weekend with the UFC Long Island, because I grew up in the Long Island area, but I have to take you back to your roots growing up as a kid, because my dad actually grew up in Passaic, and you did as well. So tell me a little bit about what life was like growing up in Passaic, New Jersey.
I mean, it was great. There was a lot of Italians around, and had not a worry in the world because I was a kid.
Well, I have to tell you this, because every time I would go to Passaic and my dad would show me his hometown, we would always go 10 minutes up the road to Clifton. And yesterday was National Hot Dog Day, and this place was actually named the best hot dog place in the country. So since you're familiar with the area, I have to imagine you've been to Rutt's Hut a few times, right?
Yeah, of course.
What do you get at Rutt's Hut? A few rippers, a little Frenchie, and some chili, I have to imagine?
Yeah, a little mixture of everything. Try something new every time if I haven't already. Try to mix up the combos.
Well, we're talking to Jimmie Rivera right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Let's get back to your interest in MMA and UFC. I know it's been something that's been with you for a very long time. Just what sparked that interest in MMA and UFC?
I trained since I was 9 years old, and in training we learned how to compete, and it just kind of grew onto me, and I started, competing in amateur kickboxing matches and tournaments and jiu-jitsu tournaments, and from there, when I turned 18, actually, amateur MMA got big, and it was the first start of it, and I'm like, I got to do this. Let me jump in, let me try it out, and then kind of just doing well and succeeding, took it further and further and further.
Now, we know Tiger Schulman's always played a big part in your life, and you're an instructor in New York right now, and you've been for many years. When you have youth that come into your place and they want to get some lessons from you, what do you instruct them on? And give me a little bit about the message that you give to the youth right now.
Yeah, I just, a lot of the kids who are teenagers or even just the little kids itself that come in, because I teach from about 3 and 4 all the way up, it's really just teaching them self-defense and confidence, and I start them off with striking, and depending on where their age range is, I start them off with striking and jiu-jitsu right away. So this way they get a little bit of both, a little taste of both, and this way they can then defend themselves standing or on the ground, and I help them. I build them from not knowing anything to, if they wanted one day to become a fighter, they could, but ultimately they're able to defend themselves in any situation.
Jimmie Rivera with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, UFC Long Island this weekend. Your opponent, Thomas Almeida, tell me a little bit about him and what you need to do to walk out of Long Island with the victory.
I need to just, push the pressure and look to take his head off or take a limb or a neck off and finish the fight anyway, whether it's, a knockout or a submission or a lock. He's a tough opponent. I'm looking forward to the fight. It's definitely going to be an exciting fight. Our record combined is like 41-2.
What makes him so tough?
I think anybody just in the top 10 and top 15 are tough in the UFC. I think that's just really what comes with the territory where you're at.
And you know how much hard work goes into one of these fights and the diligent training process. And that's why I always love to see after the fight, just that scene after a fighter does win. So envision that for me a little bit. When you beat Almeida this upcoming weekend, what will the scene be like after the victory this upcoming weekend?
I'm going to be in joy, and I'm going to be calling out whether it's, TJ, Cruz, or Cody, and try to get that next fight that's going to help me get the belt.
What do you do after a fight? Like when you leave the building, when you leave the arena, what's that thing that you do? Do you go get some meals? Do you maybe get a drink or two? Or do you just go to bed? Well, what's that move after the fight?
It all depends on how the fight goes. Last fight, literally after the fight, got some food, shower, and just lay down and relax. Fight before that, actually went out. There was a little after party and hung out with everybody for an hour or two, and then had some food and relaxed and went home and slept. It all depends how the fight is and how it goes.
Now, this is a big deal because the UFC is going to debut in Long Island. We all know that they've debuted in New York with UFC 205 at MSG. But have you been surprised by a little bit of the lack of promotion of this fight coming up this weekend in Long Island?
Yeah, I mean, I have, but there's nothing really I could do about it. I could just keep doing interviews, and I've talked to every person possible for interviews and stuff like that. I never shy away from them at all because, more my name gets out there, the better, and it'll help produce, help get this fight and advertise this fight a little bit more.
You're 20-1. The record speaks for itself, and you're looking to go 21-1 after Saturday night. What do you think you need to do to earn some more respect? Because the record indicates that you're one of the great fighters.
I just got to go out there and get a very, very impressive win. When I made my win, it's like a finish, and that's what I need to do.
Does the lack of respect maybe put a little bit of an extra chip on your shoulder and make you want it a little bit more?
Yeah, kind of, I guess. I just, I got to really make that statement. I'm not getting that publicity I want, I think, and I need to make more of a statement.
So if no one's ever seen you participate before in a UFC match, tell me about your fighting skills, your technique, and a little bit about yourself if no one ever seen you.
I can tell you, no one's ever seen me in a fight. The fight can go anywhere, and just be knowing I'm looking for the finish, and there's going to be a lot of bombs being thrown.
Now, your nickname's El Terror. How'd you get that nickname?
My first amateur fight ever, amateur MMA fight, they asked me for a nickname, and my uncle named it, and it just stuck after that. And it kind of put a little fear in my opponents because I don't give up. You can still be hitting me. I'm going to be fighting back. It doesn't matter.
Wrapping up with Jimmie Rivera right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Like I mentioned, the UFC did debut in New York with UFC 205. It will debut this weekend on Long Island at Nassau Coliseum. Just what do you think it means for the sport to continue to have a New York presence after the ban for such a long time that now that presence is finally being felt in New York?
I think it's great. I love making history, too, being the first, fight in Long Island right now. It's unbelievable being on the card and making history.
All right, I had to get your take on this before we let Jimmie Rivera run because everyone's talking about this right now. Mayweather and McGregor, that will happen in August out in Las Vegas. Just give me your thoughts as someone that participates in UFC. I know it's going to be a boxing match, but just your thoughts on Mayweather and Conor McGregor.
I think Mayweather has a chance, but the only chance he has is he's got to knock him out. If it goes all the rounds, it's going to be a decision, obviously, for Floyd. But I'm rooting for McGregor, that fourth-round TKO, like he said.
How is this type of fight perceived in the UFC community? Because the boxing community, some people, they don't like it, but I have to imagine that in the UFC community, this fight's been perceived pretty well, right?
Yeah, he's represented not just himself in Ireland. He's representing all the MMA fighters, and he needs to go out there and make a huge statement. And I think it's a great thing to happen, and hopefully it opens up for more of us to go into the boxing world and, make some extra cash and just show them, we could box too. I've been in boxing gyms and trained with so many boxers, and people are like, their coaches go up to my coaches like, you need to put that kid in boxing, take him out at MMA. He'll do better in boxing. And, that's one of the biggest things is like, why not, go in there and fight some big names and not have to worry about climbing this crazy record of 30 and what. Go in there and fight one of the biggest names, and take them on and beat them. I can step with any boxer in there and beat him. I believe Conor can beat Mayweather. I believe, Mayweather dropped down to 147 where he usually fights. I could go in there and beat him too.
Now, I think Mayweather's going to win like most of the people do, but if McGregor has a respectable night and he hangs in there with Mayweather, do you believe a trend will occur that we'll start seeing more UFC fighters start to go over to the boxing world and take on some of the bigger boxing names?
I think so, for sure.
All right, Jimmie. Well, hey, we appreciate it. Thanks so much, and best of luck this upcoming weekend.
Thank you so much.